Let's get started. So this is the question that came in on career advice. I was at one of the Yatra events this year. A big thank you to all the, a bit, oh, I just cut and pasted this, so our submission had a bit of a typo. A big thank you to all the speakers that came along. I'm a student here in Medabad, and I'm looking for advice on getting started with Oracle. For those that don't know, when we do the Yatra tour, we go to various cities in India. And one of the great things that SAR does there as part of the user group is, as well as having a lot of Oracle professionals there, often the doors are opened at no cost to any local students who want to come along and pick up information if they're either studying databases or studying Oracle, or they're getting ready to graduate. And so this person was looking at just graduating. They said, how do I kickstart my career? Because especially in India, as each college or university finishes its educational year, you generally have a bunch of people coming out, all tackling, ready to jump into the workforce. So as a student, as a graduating student, how do you be that one that stands out? How do you be the student that is not just in the pile of all the other students when they start going for that first job? So I tried to come up with a list of things that I think will help you in terms of make that first jump into an Oracle or in fact any kind of technical career. Let's start with something that's perhaps fairly obvious given that we're doing this over a video webinar, and that is social media. I'm based in Australia, and one of the things that Australians generally are fairly cynical of is social media for terms of tech. Most people in Australia are very active in social media in terms of, they've got to Instagram themselves out when they're on the beach. They've got to Instagram out when they're at a concert, and they're on Facebook and etc. So from a social perspective, Australians are very keen on that. But from a tech or work-related perspective, generally not. They're fairly cynical of things like Twitter. And that's a sort of fairly common theme I see around the world. People think, I know that there's a lot of celebrities on Twitter, but why would I want to be involved in Twitter? What's the benefit for me? So one of the things that I encourage anyone, and this is not just something as a student or a graduate, this is anyone involved in tech, especially, in any kind of tech, is I would encourage you to be active on Twitter. Now, what do I mean by active? That doesn't mean you have to do, for example, what I do as a developer advocate, and that is be actively posting on Twitter. However, I think we need to accept the fact that the vast majority of the large tech companies for which most graduates will be striving to get careers with are generally based out of the US. They all may have head offices all over the world, but generally they're based out of the US. The US, in my experience, loves Twitter. People in the US are very active on Twitter, and in particular, people inside Oracle, Google, Microsoft, etc., are all very, very active on Twitter. What that means is, in terms of staying abreast of what's coming out of these technology companies, being on Twitter is actually not just a fun and games, it's actually an integral part of your educational process. And I'm not just speaking just from Oracle here. I actually follow a whole number of people from Microsoft and Amazon on Twitter because, as we can see, I use Office products like PowerPoint. I stay abreast of what's happening in terms of Microsoft Office, in terms of features and features of Windows, by following Microsoft people on Twitter. I also keep abreast of what's coming in the SQL Server world because it's always good to know people who are using multiple database technologies. So even if you never post a single tweet, of which many people may never feel the need to, I'd strongly suggest you be active on Twitter in terms of get on there, follow some people. Hopefully you might even choose to follow me, but follow people in the tech space. It's not just a thing of showing that you can follow people. It actually helps you educate yourself in terms of what's coming in the technology world. Similar process there for LinkedIn. LinkedIn and Twitter in particular are the two that I would encourage anyone to be progressive and active on, even if they're not inputting, as long as they're following and receiving information. Cycling back to our graduate, one of the benefits of this is when you do go for those interviews, when you do go to your first meetup or first conference, the people that you meet who are perhaps more recognized or well known in the community, you won't be going up and networking with them just from a total, hi, I'm a total stranger. You've never heard of me, you've never met me, and I thought I'd like to talk some tech. That might be a little bit uncomfortable or awkward for all parties concerned. If you are someone that's followed these people on Twitter. You've been following them on LinkedIn. You've occasionally replied to their tweets. You've established the beginnings of that networking relationship. So when you go up and say, "G'day, I'm Connor," they go, "Oh, I know you from Twitter." So you've broken that ice. If you're moving into a new career, this is a really, really useful way of breaking those gaps. The second piece of advice, and this may come strange given I work almost exclusively with Oracle products and have been for a number of years, is I think the world is changing. I think for anyone starting out on their tech career, the world no longer looks for what I call niche experts, because no IT company anymore uses a single product. Even if they are dominated by, say, Oracle, they will have other products they use from other companies. If they're dominated by Microsoft or Amazon or Google, it doesn't really matter. No IT company now is an island in terms of tech. They have this broad range. I worked at a company before I joined Oracle, and they used Oracle database. They used SQL Server database for other areas. They used Mongo. They had a number of different database technologies. And I think that is the way the world is moving. If I was putting my Oracle hat on, I would say, you should be using Oracle specifics everywhere. We have a product for everything. But I'm a realist. I know the world doesn't necessarily work that way. So if you come out of your graduate from college, or you've had a couple of years of experience in the workforce, one of the things I'd strongly encourage people to do is, yes, you can have expertise or a primary expertise. You might be an Oracle DBA, you might be a SQL Server DBA, but make sure you can put a few different hats on. Because if you can show you have expertise in one piece of technology, then an employer knows that you've got the ability to learn and pick up skills. That's a big tick in the box. If you can then demonstrate that you are at least basically familiar, have a rudimentary knowledge of other technologies, then that makes you inherently more employable, because you've proven that you can pick up skills by having strong expertise in one. And the fact that you're cognizant of other technologies gives the employer a confidence that you'll be able to have a broad range of skill sets and pick up other new skills easily. That makes you very, very attractive. And I think that is the way the world's going. If you can have a solid level of expertise in a whole suite of technologies, then that's going to probably stand you in a better stead than being absolutely brilliant in just a single technology. If you can be brilliant in lots of technologies, well, that's a lot of boxes you've ticked. But yeah, so breadth of technology. And I think that lesson is also valid for all of us as DBAs, in the sense that the reality is we may currently just be Oracle DBAs, but we may have to become DBAs, even if we never branch out of the Oracle product stack. Most of us, I'm sure, on the call would be realizing the fact that nowadays we get told, "Oh yes, you're the DBA. By the way, can you look after that WebLogic server? Oh, we've got some big data products coming along as well. Oh, we're doing some machine learning. You need to tackle that as well." That breadth of expertise in any level of experience, I think, is very, very useful. This one's perhaps a little bit more controversial. For me, the thing that really matters most is the data and not the applications. And what do I mean by that? Is the acronym I put there at the end of that line is YAFET, coined by a friend of mine, Tone Capillars, who says, yes, YAFET stands for yet another front-end technology. And that is, every year, and I'm sure most of us have seen this, there's the next and greatest thing. Everyone's going to be using client server. Oh, everyone's going to be using SOA. Everyone's going to be using microservices. Everyone's going to be using serverless. Everyone's going to be using, and it just goes on and on and on and on. And it's the same with languages. C is the big thing, then C#, and then JavaScript, and then something else, and then Java, and it constantly changes. None of these languages become extinct, but they tend to evolve and change and the like. They constantly change. The one thing that is a constant, though, is data. All these systems need to rely on data. Now, the way we store the data, the way we use the data, the way we massage the data is just like languages. It changes over time, over years. But the concept of the importance of data is unchanging. Any advice I'll give to any database professional, in fact, any IT professional, is being fluent in the way that data is being managed. In particular, whether it's document databases, whether it's relational databases, whether it's any other kind of structured form of database storage, I think is critical for all IT professionals nowadays. Because in the great era of AI and machine learning, etc., the data volumes are finally delivering on that promise that we have from big data a while ago. Big data was out a number of years ago, and a lot of people have sort of went, well, yeah, I started storing everything, but where was the return on investment? I didn't get the value. finally now machine learning and AI is starting to probably turn on that investment. So being fluent in the way data is stored, I think is Stack Overflow. I've been trying to be more active on Stack Overflow because obviously a lot of developers live there. But in terms of getting started in your career, I think it's a wonderful resource, not just for answering the questions you have, but for you contributing to that. Now, I know that often forums and Stack Overflow is no different to many others, that sometimes if you're a bit of a newbie and you post an answer to someone's question, the flame wars start and everyone starts jumping up and down on you. But Stack Overflow and other forums are now getting better at sort of self-moderating that kind of egotistical put down. And similarly on Ask Tom, if people tend to sort of shout down other people's answers, we do our best, Chris and I, to rein that stuff back in because we were all newbies once. But getting onto Stack Overflow, not just in terms of posting questions, which obviously we're encouraged to do, but actually trying to answer people's questions, once again, gets you a little bit of a presence in the online community, which is going to break down those bridges when it comes to, for example, moving careers or getting a new career. Certifications. Hopefully, he says bravely, you've seen that I've just been doing some videos recently for Oracle University. Perhaps they haven't been published yet, but we've been doing some 19C and 18C features for Oracle University. Those videos will be available either already or available soon. And Oracle University obviously has a number of certification exams you can do. I wrote a blog post a number of years ago about what are my thoughts on certification. And don't get me wrong, I think any employer who employs someone solely based on the certifications they have will probably and deserves to get burnt, because anyone with a little bit of exam cramming can get themselves a certification. That's not my point here. I think the value of doing certifications is not such that you have the little certificate at the end, although that is a slight benefit in terms of career prospects. The real benefit is it picks up holes in your knowledge base. What was it? Yeah, my very first certification, I think, was an Oracle 7 certification exam. And I just passed by the skin of my teeth. And the reason was there was a number of questions on multi-threaded server. And I'd never used multi-threaded server. All the clients I'd worked with in those years were all dedicated server. And I would imagine that most people on this call don't have a lot of time spent with multi-threaded server. It's one of those sort of niche technologies. When they asked me questions on that, I went, man, I have no idea what the configuration was and the parameters, etc. So it revealed a shortcoming in my knowledge. So certification is a great way of cycling back to that breadth of expertise. Before I joined Oracle, I was lucky enough or fortunate enough to become an ACE director. And I think community recognitions programs are actually very, very useful. Microsoft have I think they're called most valuable MVPs, Microsoft MVPs, I think they're called. We have our ACE program and our Java programs, Java champions and groundbreaker ambassadors. These are really good things to aspire to, even if you're fairly new to the workforce. One of the things we have in our ACE program is a thing called the ACE Associate, which is, for lack of a better term, an entry-level tier, which is really just our way of trying to kickstart people into sharing things with the community, writing a blog, doing webinars, doing videos, doing anything that is contributing back to the community. I was thrilled. This person came from Ahmedabad. I was thrilled that in Yatra this year, last year at Ahmedabad, we had about 60 people at the event. This year we had 150. And when the day was over, how normally you have a series of sessions during the day. When the day was over, we couldn't get people to leave. We're all done. We're all speakers. We're all absolutely gassed out because we've been speaking all day. And people just wouldn't leave the building. They just wanted to chit chat and talk tech and ask questions and just really just establish great bonds and great relationships. It was probably one of my favorite cities this year in terms of touring places because people were just buzzing about talking about Oracle tech. And I think contribution to the community does that. Even if you're just a graduate, reach out to your local user groups, go to some meetups, go to some user group events. We had that APAC Groundbreaker tour the last few days. Even if it's a piece of technology that you're either new at or have never seen, I'm keen to go to technology events that are not just Oracle. Next year, I'm doing some talks in Portugal at a student event, not even Oracle related. So I really enjoy that concept of if you can contribute to a community, the value back to you is enormous. And obviously, the kind of people that go to these community events are not just techies. Potential employers are going to these events. So in terms of looking at prospering and growing your career, being involved in the community obviously gets you a bit of an online presence. If you go to an employer and say, I'm an Oracle ACE and this is what an Oracle ACE is and what they do, that obviously is much more endearing to a potential employer. And the final one was a term which I stole from, oh, I can't remember the name. Who did? Anyway, someone gave a talk on what we call soft skills. And one of the things that I do find answering Ask Tom questions all year long is that the ability to cohesively put together a description of a problem or a description of an answer is a critical skill. It's not, not your technology, your ability to cohesively get across information is a critical skill. The other one that I think is critical is being able to demonstrate your ability to think and explain your thoughts. Before I joined Oracle, I used to be in charge of some interviewing for a client company who I won't name just in case they don't want me to say that. But we interviewed both graduates and experienced people for positions in the company. And one of the things we always asked them was, here's a problem, and not like sort of the Google S style you hear of, here's some strange coding problem you need to solve. It was like, here's a problem that our business is realistically trying to solve. We're not asking you to solve it, but we're saying, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on? Tell us how do you think you would tackle it? Not in terms of solve, but what are the things that would probably jump into your mind in terms of the questions that you would be asking of business users even, or the questions of how do we decide what kind of technology we might need to do in terms of solution? Not in terms of finding their ability to get with the solution, but just their ability to actually talk a problem through, to be able to express themselves, especially if you're brand new coming out of university, for example, or college. Work on those soft skills. In India, at some of the things, myself and Sandesh Rao put a few students on the spot. We said, tell you what, jump up, give us a 2-minute talk about anything you'd like to talk about. And just like one-on-one, didn't want to make them into public speaking champions. That was obviously perhaps a stretch too far, but literally just one-on-one, tell us, what's your favorite language and why. And it's funny how, it reveals that ability to, some people are like, I love Java because, and I was straight into it. And that's something that immediately leaps out as being a great thing. I'm ranting on a bit, but there's probably what's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there's my 7, hopefully, things that will, in my view, make any college graduate much, much more appealing to a potential employer, makes them stand out from the crowd. I just remember, I think I have one more, but also for anyone that's been in the IT career for a length of time. I think these things are good to cycle background and say, how has the landscape changed? Obviously, when I first started in IT, and I won't share what year that was, social media wasn't really a big skill I needed. None of it existed. If you send email, you're pretty much good to go. In fact, when I started, we ran email on a mainframe because email on a PC didn't exist, but that's just something a little bit more embarrassing. I forgot one last thing, open source. I'm not saying use open source. One of the things I would encourage anyone, and this is at all ages, college graduate, all the way through up to people of my vintage, and I'd imagine all of us from the call are somewhere in between, get involved in open source in terms of contributing to open source. If you are competing for a job and you're in a pile of CVs with a lot of other people, one of the things that might make you stand out from the crowd is the fact that you've made some contributions to open source. This is not me saying, yeah, I think you should write Python or write a brand new processing language or write a new database. That's obviously insane. Some people do that, but it's not something you're going to pick up just overnight. Where I think the value is all the open source projects out there, even the large ones, are desperately searching for people to contribute, even perhaps not in terms of code, sometimes in terms of just reviewing documentation, looking through documentation and making fixes to even typos or just, phrasing, etc., translations into foreign languages. All those things are a way of you contributing to open source and establishing yourself as having a bit of a profile in the IT community. Even if you're not doing that, even a much simpler way of getting started in open source is any code you've written. If it's not under license to the companies you're working for, bang it in a GitHub repository. And therefore it just, it gets you out there, but also now you're learning and teaching yourself the concept of source code control. You're using git pull, git merge, git push, etc. You're learning a new skill and also contributing to an online community, which makes you more noticeable. There it is. I ended up coming with 8. So hopefully for anyone on the call, not just people who are young and graduating, you got some value from that. That's my view on getting ahead in your IT career.